didst give thyself for me. I know no other master. My heart shall be thy throne. My life I live henceforth to live. Oh Christ, for thee alone. Living for Jesus, who died in my place, buried on Calvary, my sin and disgrace. Son's love constrains me to learn His call. Follow His leading and give Him my all. Oh, Jesus, Lord and Savior, I give myself to Thee. For Thou in Thy atonement didst give Thyself for me. I owe no master. My heart shall be Thy throne. My life I give henceforth to live. Oh Christ, for Thee alone. Verse 4. Living for Jesus, through earth's little while, my dear treasure, the light of His smile, seeking the lost one, He died to redeem, bringing the weary to find rest in Him. Oh Jesus, Lord and Savior, I give myself to Thee. For Thou in Thine atonement didst give Thyself for me. I owe no other master. My heart shall be Thy throne. My life I give henceforth to live. Oh Christ, for Thee alone. Amen. You know, we don't sing that song often, but it's got some really good words to it, folks. Back to 475, if you would. 475. Deeper, deeper in the love of Jesus, daily let me go. Higher, higher in the school of wisdom, more of grace to know. Oh, deeper yet I pray, and higher every day, and was a blessed Lord in Thy precious holy word. Deeper, deeper, blessed Holy Spirit, take me deeper still, till my life is wholly lost in Jesus and His perfect will. Oh, deeper yet I pray, and higher every day, and was the blessed Lord in Thy precious holy word. Let me go, rooted in the Oh, deeper yet a prayer every day. And what a blessed Lord in the precious holy word. Deeper, higher, every day in Jesus. Conflicts past, finally comfort, and in His image, perfected at last. Oh, deeper yet a prayer, and higher every day, and wiser, blessed Lord, in thy precious holy word. Amen. Anybody have a word of testimony? Don't hear that word anymore, testimony.
I really needed the Lord. In this trying time.
Well, you're doing the right thing, Aaron. You're going through His word, you're going to prayer. Remember, Aaron, in your prayers, remember those who are sick. That Dolores was in the hospital today for a few hours trying to figure out some stuff. She's home now, but Bonnie is home from vacation, but she came home sick, and she's been sick all weekend and stuff. So she said she's feeling better, but keep her in your prayers if you would. Any other requests that you may have?
That's my first cousin who lives close to 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania, in the mountains. And he, day before yesterday, had a fever of 104. He's 83 years old. His name is John. And they had to make him go to the hospital today. And he has a strange type of leukemia. And he's been treated for years. And he's hanging in there, but it doesn't look real positive for him at this time. They run a test on it. They do not have any idea what the problem is yet. So if you all will keep him in prayer. John Sadler.
What else?
I'd like to add the name of my cousin, Catherine Bailey Small. She lost her mother this week. My Aunt Josie.
Bill, I'm asking you, would you lead us in prayer now, please?
The most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight and give you the praise and thanks for something here on this earth.
Yes.
That we can worship you. Come here tonight and hear your given to us, that we may strengthen our spirits and be able to reflect you to other people and the world around us. Father, we pray all these requests to tonight, that different ones for sickness and being in the hospital or now at home, and many more. For power and bless him, Lord, to us still through this transition. Bless him and help him, give him strength, be with us. In this message tonight, we pass today the words that will encourage each one of us to look to the future and look to the day that we can see you face to face. Yes, and praise you and give you the thanks for this day. Amen.
I don't know if you heard the words to the second song, especially saying, deeper, deeper in the love of Jesus. Daily let me go. higher, higher in the school of wisdom. Hopefully that's what our Wednesday night Bible study is about, so we can all learn a little bit more about God. We're going to go to the book of Hebrews tonight, and it's not a chapter that we're going to be studying in Sunday school, so we're going to grab this one anyhow.
I found out that if you sit down and just keep on reading the Bible right straight through it, it's amazing the things that you see that way that you've never seen.
No matter how many times you read it, you find something new. There's a list of words up on the board up here, and there were so many I had to write them small, so if you can't see them too well, that's your fault. You need to move closer. I'm going to read a couple of them. You tell me what comes to your mind first thing, okay? Your first association with that word. Discipline.
Spankings.
Spankings. You never got any of those, did you?
No. Yes.
Sin that so easily entangles us or ensnares us, certain versions say. What comes to your mind? Oh, that's one of them phrases you just skip over, huh?
I guess
Temptation?
maybe I was raised in a family where there was a lot of love, and I didn't really have to go astray like some children did. And I see some of them today that are really obnoxious. And they want everything, give me. And there's not much reaching out to other people. And I think that's a sin.
Also, thinking of few people that sin to them is easily entangled. It's sin that they don't even recognize as sin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do it.
How about the word perseverance?
Keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. Weary.
When you get tired.
No. Lose heart. Get discouraged. Struggle. Anybody, speak up. We have not yet resisted unto death, this passage will tell us.
Struggle with these things that give you a hard time.
Okay?
When you lose heart, when something happens to you that you weren't expected to do and you can't get over it.
Okay. How about the word endurance? Aren't these good words? We just all love to go through these things. Hardships.
So most of the time you think of hardships as financial. But that's not necessarily what you get.
Well, one of the phrases in one of the songs we sang was deeper, deeper, though it cost hard trials. How many of us invite trials to come just so I can get in a deeper relationship with the Lord? Not too many of us. Okay? Included, all those words are included in the passage we're going to look at in just a minute. But there's two other words that are included in there as well, and I want you to tell me if they relate to these. Okay? Righteousness and peace.
So they come from God.
Okay? Do they have anything to do with this list?
Well, I think if you go through it, you have to have peace afterwards.
Okay.
And
So
righteousness.
both those words may be the goal we're shooting for. You know,
I have to pray for peace during it.
yeah.
Righteousness and peace override those other ones.
Okay.
Yeah,
I want to read, beginning with chapter 11, verse 39, if we could. I want to read through the whole passage that we're going to look at, and then we'll come back to it a little bit at a time. And if it's not all right, that's tough. Most of us are pretty familiar with chapter 11 of Hebrews. Anybody In 3 words, tell me what that is.
Faith.
Faith.
Mhm.
It's really faith's Hall of Fame. It has this list here of so-and-so, 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 and so-and-so. By faith, Abraham, by faith, Isaac, by faith, Jacob, Joseph, etc., etc. Moses, all the way down through there, you know. And what more could I say? I could tell you of so-and-so, this and that, and everything else. Then we get to verse 39 of chapter 11, and here's what it says. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. Did you ever get blown away by that? You know, they were promised, you know, a big family and, you know, land and blessings, and most of them in that list died before they ever saw any of it. Okay? And that's what he's saying here, verse 39. They were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, and who witnesses he talking about? All those in chapter 11. Okay? Since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance. Watch for these words here, okay? Let us perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose. In your struggle against sin, you've not yet resisted the point of shedding your blood, and that's still true for us today here in this room. You have yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood, and you have forgotten that word of encouragement that addresses you as sons. My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he accepts as a son. Verse 7, endure hardship, discipline. God is treating you as sons. For what son is not disciplined by his father? If you're not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, you know, in different ways, but I know that every time I read that, I think, you know, a lot of people don't get disciplined today, kids, you know. But if you're not disciplined, everyone undergoes discipline, then you are illegitimate children and not true sons. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How the Father of our spirits and live? Our fathers did what they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of peace. There are those 2 words. For those who have been trained by it. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees, for your feet, so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. Make every effort to live in peace with all men and to be holy, for without holiness, no one will see the Lord. No one will see the Lord. There's an old saying, probably most of us have heard it. Into every life, a little rain must fall. That's another way of saying, I think, that everyone has problems from time to time. We had rain the other night. I don't know if you noticed it or not.
Yeah, I got 4 inches.
Yeah. Bea and I were just checking out in the checkout stand at Walmart. We heard boom, boom, and then we heard it hitting the roof, and we sat inside the door for 20 minutes before we went to the car, you know. It rained, okay? Into every life, a little rain must fall. The question is, what are the reasons for the rain? And what are the purposes, you know what I'm talking about. What are the reasons for the troubles? And what are the purposes of the problems in our lives? Can you answer that? I know the pat answer, to make us a better person, to make us stronger, etc., etc. Anybody got any the reasons for and the purposes of problems?
To make us depend more on God.
Good. Okay, Bill?
To strengthen us
Okay.
in spirit.
Let me get a little more Pacific. Not Atlantic, Pacific, but a little more Pacific. What kind of things tire you out? Working hard, yeah, okay,
Honeydews.
okay.
That's working too hard.
Drama.
Yeah.
What has made me tired is this experience that I'm going through.
Emotional tiredness, yep.
You also get tired of doing nothing.
You ain't gotta get up and move.
Stresses of life, jobs, childcare. No matter how old they get, isn't that right, Di? Diane's our baby. How do you react when you are tired versus when you're not tired?
You're grouchy.
Yes, and you don't.
Don't talk to my wife, because I am never grouchy.
Right, exactly. Inside herself.
Next question, don't use the word SLEEP, okay? Even though that's an answer, but don't use it. How do you restore your energy when you're tired?
Sit down and rest.
Take a big
So,
I rest about, oh, yeah. Go ahead.
stop focusing on yourself.
Ah, okay, good. Bill?
I would go you have to take a big well.
Okay. Aaron?
I enjoy reading the Bible.
Okay.
I was tired from working in that basement today, so when I come, and I've been working yesterday, tired me. So when I came up, I took a napkin and sat in my chair and rested. That's kind of.
Is part of that because, no.
I'm sorry, I don't, you know.
What do you think, and everybody's answer is probably different, what do you think's the most source for the most stress in many people's lives?
Finances.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Every time you go to the gas station, your blood pressure goes up? Yeah. We're really getting a good deal now. It's only $1.75 more than it was a year ago, instead of $2.
Or was it someone turned their car in, you get a new car, and want the value, and the salesman asked, how much gas is in the car?
How much gas does it tank? You get more for that.
Well, when it gets at 3/4, I go into.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Our van had almost a half a tank yesterday. I put $50 in it and still didn't take it full.
Oh, my goodness.
Who would ever dream we'd be putting $50, $60 worth of gas? I remember when I paid $50 for the car,
I took Brittany's car down the other day, filled up before she left to go back to the valley. It must have been empty. I filled it up,
Yeah.
and it took $72 worth.
Wow.
Some of these, truckers that have the huge trucks,
Yeah.
I understand they put up to $2,000 worth of gas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they have huge tanks.
Do you have any, when you think of any sayings, mottos, whatever, that help you get through hard times?
I don't know about other people, but mine is knowing God.
Be still and know that I am God. So
Okay.
that really helps me sometimes.
Ever hear the phrase, when the going gets tough,
Don't go,
tough get going?
what doesn't kill you makes you strong.
There you go. When God closes the door, when God closes the door, he, does it always feel like that when we're going through stuff? And we're gonna get into this passage here in a minute, okay? Just, and see what it says about all these, and I'll use the word negative words, okay? Even though they can be positive outcomes, okay? And we'll see that hopefully. But there was a military sergeant who was not a very nice guy. In fact, he was pretty profane, if you would. Constantly tormented one certain private whom he found out was a Christian. And the sergeant offered him extra duty as punishment for nothing really that he had done. found other ways to harass him. Okay, that still happens, folks. Well, one evening, a private came in from duty. He was wet, tired, and cold. He knelt down to pray beside his bunk, and the sergeant threw his boots at him, hitting the private in the head. The next morning, the sergeant found his boots sitting neatly beside his bed, beautifully polished by that private.
It took a lot of guts.
Mm.
Not if you're a real Christian.
I never also intended to do food, but yeah.
It did. It took a lot
Well,
of guts.
the sergeant would not give him any peace,
Yes.
but, the private did what he could to. Who knows what influence that would have on that sergeant down the road, How do we usually react to harassment in life?
Sometimes you want to retaliate.
Let me rephrase that. How do a lot of people react to harassment? Not us around these tables.
Standing their ground or even worse,
Okay?
taking physical.
Don't a lot of people try to be even
Yeah.
with other people? Okay. If you, chapters and verses and stuff like that were not in the original language when the Bible was written. Y'all know that, hopefully. Okay, and therefore that's why we started at the end of chapter 11, okay, running into chapter 12. And chapter 12 obviously begins with the word therefore, since we're surrounded. It's continuing the thought of chapter 11. I want someone, if you would, and I hope it's not redundant, but I want to read some of this a little bit more again. Would someone read for us verse 39 through verse 4 of chapter 12 one more time? And it doesn't matter which version you have. 39 through 12:4.
These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood.
Amen. Peace to you.
His story.
His story. What do you mean by that?
About Jesus, and
Okay. Tell me which of these views reflects your perspective on his story. I will read them. History is just a jumbled mess of meaningless events. Secondly, history is totally God-directed with no human consideration or options. Or, history is a progression of events leading to a significant conclusion.
I like that one better.
You're allowed to like any one of them if you want. History is just a jumbled mess of meaningless events. History is totally God-directed with no human consideration. Or history is a progression of events leading to a significant conclusion. If you heard what Elizabeth read, all these guys of faith, they made history. They did. If you read back through there, okay, it starts way, way back with Abraham, all the way back there, and it comes all the way down through them, okay? I want to read a little bit. There's a quote in the chapter that I'm getting this stuff from. The Hebrew view of history must also be a part of our understanding. And they do have a different viewpoint of history than we have, okay? So I hope you'll hear this. The Jews believe the past also to be a part of the present. What happened then is still happening today. The Hebrews preacher and his congregation then, the writer of this, whoever he was, would have no difficulty thinking of the saints of the past, sharing in the event taking place in their present. They were not just dead heroes who inspired, their spirits were alive and active in the fulfillment of their hopes and dreams. What do you think of that? How does that differ from our view of history? Do you think Abraham Lincoln is here in this room helping us to understand the Bible?
We don't know.
The Hebrews would, according to what they thought of history. Who is, and you can pick anybody from chapter 11, you can pick anybody from your life, but who's one person among the great cloud of witnesses that has benefited your life and where you're at? Okay? In 30 seconds or less, tell us why.
Yeah, well, his name was Larry.
Well, that's good enough then, huh? Must have been a great man, huh?
No, he was a good Christian man, and he taught me a lot. Every time I would be with him, doing whatever I did with him at his shop or if he was at our house, he was always giving examples of things, you know, and setting examples. He lived his Christian.
Somebody else? Who is influenced your spiritual life from this great cloud of witnesses here or your personal life?
I think my mother and my father.
Okay.
I have to give my mother more credit than anybody I know of for the way I should say the way I turned out, because maybe it's not like it should have been.
So we can blame it on her.
I know, I can't blame it on her. But she had more influence on me than anybody, because at night, we had a little cot in the dining room there, and I'd lay down to take a nap. And I can remember so many times seeing her reading her Bible and then praying. You know, that really affected me.
Good. Anybody else? I want you to pay attention to this first part of chapter 12. He challenges us to action there. In verse 1, beginning right off the bat, he says, anything that hinders your spiritual race. Now, Bible see this as including everything that was involved in preparation for the Greek Olympics. A lot of what the writers in the New Testament write about, they write about from the Olympics. And what's going on, and you'll notice some of that. They train, you know, and it's kind of, I don't know what word to use, you know, they get out there and run with hardly anything on. They don't get out there and run with a, you know, so that's what this phrase is alluding to. They start with vigorous training, which strengthens their body and reduces the unnecessary fat and gives them muscles and all that stuff, down to the road that right before they run, they take off, and, you know, with very little holding them back. A lot of them even grease their bodies down and wax themselves and everything else. So it would hinder the athlete if he had that on. The Christian, according to the writer here, says we're supposed to throw off everything that hinders us. Everything. Now, whatever that may be in your life, I don't know, both good and bad, that makes holy living more difficult. We're supposed to get rid of it. He also used the phrase, and the sin that so easily entangles. The writer chose not to identify a list of sins, as sometimes Paul does. You know, and I don't know that Paul wrote Hebrews. I really don't. Some scholars believe so. I don't know. Okay, but Paul always, a lot of times, used the list. You know, this, and this, and this, and this. These are bad, and don't do them, or you won't make heaven. Well, this writer didn't identify a list of sin. He said, throw off every sin that so easily entangles us. And maybe he did that for a couple reasons. What entangles Sandra may not entangle Hiram. And what entangles Hiram may not entangle Diane. You know, it may not be the same temptation for everybody. Not everybody's vulnerable to the same temptation. And secondly, if you really go back to the original language, the issue is not sins, it's sin. And he says, throw off the sin that easily entangles you. In other words, get rid of sin, S-I-N, not S-I-N-S. It's, you know, who we are, how we think, what attitudes we hold. It's that sin nature, not just what we do. You know, it's not some particular sin that causes trouble. Sin itself is the cause of trouble. Does it make sense? The sin that so easily entangles. But he also says, run with perseverance. Our culture today, folks, we demand immediate gratification. You know, we've got drive-throughs and you can be in and out of there in 30 seconds. I don't, not the ones I go to. But, you know, we want what we want, when we want it, how we want it. We want it now and as quick as we can possibly get it, you know, for everything that we want. We need encouragement more than any other generation to run with perseverance. Look what the writer says. In verse 3, he says, consider him, or Jesus. You know, we have now come to the power room for holy living. If you want to live a holy life, don't tack up on your wall at your house a list of do's and don'ts. Live for Jesus. The choice to use the human name Jesus is significant. Earlier, we were challenged, if you go back to chapter 12, verse 2, to fix our eyes on Jesus. And I don't know, we don't know where this whole world's going. So we better be keeping our eyes on Jesus if we're going to live holy lives. Jesus is God in human form, tempted in every way as we are, yet without sin. We know that. And we can't explain it, but we know it. So the man Jesus provides the possibility and the power for holy living. If he could live the Christian life here, and he lives in us, then we can too. That's good news, folks. Go back to chapter 12, verse 5, someone, if you would. And read, if you would, for us 5 through 11 one more time.
You have forgotten the encouraging word that called you his children. My child, don't think the Lord's discipline is worth nothing. And don't stop trying to be correct you.
Keep on.
Keep going.
Through 11.
Oh, okay. The Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes everyone he accepts as his child.
He's quoting Proverbs there, okay? Okay, go ahead, Jerry.
So hold on through your suffering, because they are like a fallen discipline. God is treating you as children. All children are disciplined by their father. 4 through 11.
Through 11.
If you are never disciplined, and every child must be disciplined. Not true. We have all had fathers on earth who discipline from the Father of our spirit, so we will have life. Our fathers on earth discipline us for a short time the way they thought was best. But God disciplines us to help us so we can become holy as he is. We do not enjoy being disciplined. It is painful at the time, but later, after we have learned from it, we have peace because we start living in the right way.
Does our definition of discipline fit what's being described in these verses? Let me change that. Does young people's idea of discipline fit what's being described in this verse?
No.
Did you, when you were going through it as a young person, see this? I don't know about you, but they were mean. Not to me, but yeah. Or anybody that disciplined you. I got caught doing something bad in school, we got disciplined.
Yeah.
You got sent to the principal's office. I mean, those kids who got caught, okay? They got sent to the principal's office, and the principal had a board about that long. You can't do that now, I know that, but that's child abuse.
So they say.
I had an experience in 5th grade, and the teacher said, you need to go down to the principal's office. And I didn't know that I'd even done anything, I was trying to think in my mind, what did I do? She said, he wants to see you immediately. So I got up and went down, and I walked into the office, and the girl at the desk said, what are you here for? I said, I'm supposed to come see the principal. She said, who are you? I said, I'm Hiram Wood. She said, oh, yeah, he's waiting for you in his office. Boy,
Your heart was beating.
yeah. And I walked in, he said, shut the door. And so I shut the door and he said, I hear this. He said, I want to take you over to my house. His house was across the street from the school. And he said, I want to take you over to my house a minute. A train set up in the basement. Train set.
Oh, that's sweet.
But before I saw the train set, I saw a lot of other things.
You thought you were in trouble? or-
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Let's figure out what the author is trying to say about discipline here and try to make it personal. How can we tell the difference between God's discipline and tough times, or the devil at work, or even our stupid choices? Is there a difference?
Oh, yeah.
What brought on those hard times, you know? How do we know it's God's discipline and not just hard times? There's a lot of people going through hard times. Are they being disciplined because they were bad? Do people have bad things happen to them because God's disciplining them? Or because they made stupid decisions?
Could be both. Only one.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. This passage and the rest of the book of Hebrews doesn't help us a whole lot in deciding which it is. We have to figure that out, okay? Because the main reason is we don't have a word in the English language that has the same meaning as the Greek word that's used here for discipline, okay? The word is translated a whole bunch of different ways. There are a few encouraging words like discipline, chastening, training, correction. I like correction better than discipline, because that's kind of positive if you're correcting something, you know. But the word in the original is an old word referring to the whole process of training a child, including instruction, encouragement, correction, discipline, and punishment. In fact, the Apostle Paul even said that, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, you know, in the way he should go. One version says, in the instruction of the Lord. Well, if we look at it from that viewpoint, here's three things I want you to do, okay? There's paper laid there if you want to write these down, because I think they're really good, but we're going to use part of that paper in a little while. Number one, discipline is a demonstration of God's love. It's a demonstration of God's love. If God didn't love us, he wouldn't discipline us, because he wants us to be a better person, a better Christian, a better child of his, okay? So, no one ever got told this. This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you.
Yeah, I've heard that.
You know what? When you become a parent, it does hurt you more than it does hurt the child.
Yeah.
When you discipline them. And quite frankly, discipline and love in some ways seem to be opposites. Why do you want to hurt the one you love? But the passing of years changes our understanding of some things, folks. And love sometimes causes some frustration or pain to save a loved one from greater pain. That's where God's discipline is, okay? It's a demonstration of his love. Secondly, discipline is a confirmation that we are members of God's family. And that passage that Jerry read there, you know, if he didn't discipline you, then you really are not his child. If you're, you know, my dad never disciplined a neighbor's children. He disciplined us. Okay, you know, it says there, you know, if you're not disciplined and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are illegitimate children and not true sons. We have all had human fathers who disciplined them and we respected them for it. How much more shall we submit to the Father of our spirits and live? So it's a confirmation that we're part of his family. And when we finally figure it out that God is disciplining us and not because we made a stupid decision, whatever it is, okay, then we can know that he's doing it because we're a child of his. Third thing, discipline is intended to improve the one being disciplined. Okay, it's for correction, it's for betterment, so we're a better person. And that's what he says there in verse 10. Our fathers disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good so that we may share in his holiness. So as Christians, we're disciplined by a loving God, not for his self-interest or to make us feel like bad people or anything else, or to decrease discomfort, but that we could share in him. That's why we're talking about a good parent, okay? A good parent disciplines a child for their betterment, not so they can feel, I'm in charge of this house, and if you don't like it, you know, but they do it for the betterment of the child. If you don't discipline a child, well, boy. So the holy life, if we're going to live a holy life, it's a disciplined life. Holy living submits to God's discipline, and exercise self-discipline is what we're supposed to do, okay? Do you have any thoughts in your mind, discipline that your parents did to you that at the time you didn't realize was going to be beneficial?
Oh, yeah, I can think it through.
Tell us one.
Oh, when we're in church, you know,
You're going, whether you like it or not.
we
But that was said in many homes, maybe not yours, but myself.
Not in mine. We were at church, they saw church that we went to church, and Mama took us.
Okay.
And instead we had went to the other church that was down the road, but we go there too sometimes, but we go with our mother. But, when you got older and you sat, back from your parents, maybe with a group of young people, and if you were talking, when they thought you were talking, she turned and you know, and I think I had that one there, so, but, she would.
I
And
saw B that do that many times to our children. All she had to do was turn around and look at them, and they,
And I think of Sheila with Carol, you know, she didn't allow Carol to get up and walk around in church or anything. She sat by her, and I'm thinking, you can remember, and if she misbehaved, Sheila didn't have to, all she would do was take her hand and she'd squeeze. And Carol knew she was supposed to behave. And she is disciplined enough when she sits in church now, she pays attention.
okay?
So,
Somebody else, what disciplines did your parents give you that you now realize was beneficial to you?
Bad bruise because I wasn't applying myself.
My parents didn't do so much spanking and such, they did more talking. And my mother and my dad both, and they would take one of us aside, and without the other children. I was from a family of 9 children. And so they didn't do that in front of the other children, which I really appreciate, because it was more personal between my parents and me instead of a whole group. And they really were good parents.
Anybody else? Did your parents make you take a bath when you didn't want to?
no, it's one thing.
Brush your teeth? Let me change the question. What discipline has God given you that you understand now is good for you, and going through it you might not have? Can you think of any?
Well, I can think of someone that encouraged me that when I was going through something, I was in California missions, and he just told me to put smiley face on my paper. And I told him to stay, I still put a smiley face on my paper, mission paper, when I knew in front of me. There was a reason behind that, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Someone read for us, if you would, verses 12 through 14. 12 through 14. Chapter 12, yeah, verses 12 through 14.
Therefore lift up the hand which is hang down, and let the people lead, and make straight paths for your feet. Lest that which is lame be turned out of the way, but let it rather be healed. With all peace with all men, and holiness without which no man shall see the Lord. Look at diligently, lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness spring up trouble you, and thereby many be defiled.
Good. noticed in verse 1 of that chapter, the writer talks about the imagery of a sports thing, lay off, throw off everything that hinders and sin, so let us run with perseverance. He's talking spiritual, not physical. Even though he's taking the picture from the physical, he's talking spiritual. And now he's talking about feeble arms, weak knees. He's describing tired people. He's describing old, worn out body parts.
Oh, I don't.
He's describing, forget about our age, our condition.
Oh,
He's describing spiritually exhausted people. He's not talking about what, we can run 10 miles, I can't run 10 miles. He's talking about people ready to give up. And whether we admit it or not, many of us have been there at one time or another. And many people are giving up even right now because the world is so bad. And we know how much easier it is to quit when we're worn out and tired and discouraged and frustrated. That's when people quit. They don't quit when they're on a high. Okay? So he's trying to tell us to hang in there. What causes spiritual exhaustion?
trying your best to live like other people would like you to live.
Oh, okay, so trying to please other
Yeah.
people, okay? Anything else, any other things? Causes spiritual exhaustion.
You can't lose them. Just live your life the best you know how.
Is overcommitment a problem for most people? It used to be, I think, years ago. But I think it's a problem for people who are overcommitted to too many different things that don't help them out spiritually. Okay? How about trying to live this Christian life in our own strength? But we try to do that, don't we? Instead of relying on the Lord. Sometimes we lose perspective of things. Sometimes we take criticism too seriously or try to please other people or whatever it may be. And all of those things causes us to be disillusioned with where we're at. And how can we apply these verses to our everyday spiritual lives? What we just read.
When things like this come up to me, I just say, Lord, please help me, show me what I should do. And I get, when he shows me, sometimes it'll be in the scripture, or someone will say something, and then I'll say, well, I see what you're saying.
Strengthen your feeble arms and your weak knees. What's that mean to you?
Keep on running.
Make level paths for your feet so that the lame may not be disabled. Every once in a while, we'll watch an episode of Daniel Boone, and I'm always amazed by their writing. He's in Kentucky, but a couple hours later, he's in New Orleans. How in the world did you get there? There weren't any roads back then. He even mapped out roads and all that stuff. How easy was it for him to go 500 miles versus you and I to go 500 miles?
Because it was in his script.
When he's talking about straightening out the roads and stuff like that, make level paths for your feet. It's a whole lot easier to run on a path where there's a path and not out through the middle of the woods somewhere. So that's what he's alluding to there, okay? Everybody exercises to be stronger. We're supposed to exercise our faith to be strong. We're supposed to straighten out our path by doing the right things. If we get sidetracked and do the wrong things, our path is going to be off, okay? And we're supposed to be on the right path. Don't be the one causing trouble. Instead, be the one, that private and the sergeant. One of them was causing trouble. One was solving the problem. We're supposed to be the solvers, making peace, not war. When it says make straight paths for your feet, it's a literal translation, a little bit, it's more literal than the NIV level paths. This is the only place in the New Testament it's used. And it literally means a path of a wheel. I don't know who it was that invented the wheel, but praise God for him. Yeah, can you look back? I know a couple of you might be that old, but you remember when it was invented. Sorry. Do you realize the difference it made in society when they invented the wheel? A round wheel, not a square wheel.
I wish I was there.
Things changed, okay, and things were a whole lot easier. It means smooth and level. Verse 12 says, make every effort to live in peace with everyone. And that doesn't catch the full force of the Greek. Being at peace with everyone is something to which we are to give our attention and energy in great degree. The temptation is to explain this away. Well, so-and-so, nobody gets along with them. It wasn't my fault they did what they did. And on and on and on, we make excuses. But that verse says, make every effort to live in peace with everyone. Peace is a biblical word. We put it up here for a reason, folks. Those two words, peace and righteousness. It combines the Old Testament message of health and wholeness, Old Testament health and wholeness, with a right relationship with God. And the only way we have a right relationship with God is through Jesus Christ. And the only way we get health and wholeness is through a right relationship with God. We're admonished there to be holy. And we all, in holiness churches, we always quote that verse. Without holiness, no one can see the Lord. Well, if we're not holy, we wouldn't want to be in God's presence.
Right.
And we can't be in God's presence.
It doesn't necessarily mean the religion.
No, it has nothing to do with the denomination or anything else. It has to do with the holy heart. Yeah.
Well, I think, well, this is the way it happens to me. If I do something, or I say something, or think something that's not, that the Lord would say, it comes to me. I mean, I don't have to explain.
And it should.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit checks us.
Yes.
Yeah. You have a piece of paper somewhere on your table in front of you and a writing utensil. This is not homework. This is in-class work.
You don't have to be.
Just in closing here, okay, I'll let you go, because I can see the clock. Look at chapter 12, verse 1. And based on chapter 12, verse 1, write down 3 things on that paper. Since we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily besets us or entangles us. Write down 3 things that you may need to discard from your life if you're going to grow in holiness. Nobody's going to see these papers, okay, between you and God. 3 things that you may need to throw off. When the writer says throw off everything that hinders us, what comes to your mind about your life? Write down 4 or 5 if you can. Nobody wants to see them, just yours. Okay? Somebody got a list? Or a couple? You're such bad people, you ought to come up with something. I hope you'll see this when I'm done there. You got a couple written down? Look at your list, and if some of those things, I don't know how to word this, if some of those things in and of themselves are good things, they can be, put a G by them. And if there's something that's bad, put a B by it. on the rest of your paper, or the other side, or whatever, what's the greatest challenge you face living the holy life?
The greatest challenge.
Greatest challenge to living a holy life. Tough questions, aren't they? Right now, what is God telling you to do about this? I don't, that's between you and God. But the verse that he quotes here from Proverbs is, my son, listen to this, my son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline. Do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes everyone he accepts as his son. Whatever's on your list, maybe the Lord wants to discipline us with whatever that may be. And maybe he wants us to throw off everything that hinders us and so easily ensnares us, and let us run with perseverance the race that's put before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus. Not on those things, not on those people, if you put a person or whatever, okay? But fixing our eyes on Jesus. Lord, we thank you for your word, even though sometimes it's pretty hard to swallow, especially when you speak to us about what we're supposed to do or not do. But I pray you help us all, everyone here tonight, to take heart and take to heart everything that we've talked about tonight as you discipline us for our good in our spiritual walk. Move us and see you better, and just have your way in our lives. Be an influence on somebody for Jesus Christ. In your name we pray. Amen. God bless you all. Thank you for coming.